I was pretending to be deaf for a reason, to see who was a true friend and who was fake. So I remained quiet. I would hear so many secrets to use for my own advantage. When I was 6 years old, my hearing started to deteriorate. I had this rare disease that impacted my hearing abilities. It got to the point where I couldn't hear anything. My life was ruined. And it was even worse at school. All the other kids made fun of me because I had to use sign language to communicate or write on pieces of paper. It was horrible. I knew what it was like to hear. I knew what I was missing out on. But then, miraculously, when I was around 15 years old, my hearing started to come back. I have no idea how, but all of a sudden I could hear people talking around me. I was ecstatic. My hearing was back. But after class ended, they still spoke to me as if I was deaf. I was going to say something. I was. But then, I heard a friend of mine saying my name. She was talking about me behind my back. Was this what happened all the time? How could they do that to me? That's when I realized no one had to know I wasn't deaf anymore. Maybe I could use this to my advantage. Maybe I could use this to see who was talking about me. I tried to keep it hidden. When there was a loud sound, I had to stop myself from looking in its direction. If I was deaf, I never would have realized. When the teacher said my name and I wasn't looking at him, I had to prevent myself from looking around. I had to wait for someone to tap me on the shoulder to get my attention, as if I really were deaf. And it took a while, but I got used to it. One day, I was at my locker, and this cute boy was standing there with a bunch of his friends. At first, when they saw me, they were apprehensive, but I was facing the other way, so they relaxed. As long as I couldn't see their mouths, I wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying, or so they thought. I realized they were talking about me. That's when I heard one of the cute boys, Sam, say that he had a crush on me. I was so excited and nervous. I tried not to react, but I could already feel butterflies rise up in my stomach. I was so happy then that I had pretended to be deaf. If I hadn't, I never would have realized I had an admirer. I immediately walked over to him, looking at him meaningfully. He seemed to panic a bit, probably because he thought I heard him, but then he seemed to remember I was deaf. Eventually, we started dating. He was really cute, and I found it so funny how nervous he was around me. But there was this girl, Hannah, who always flirted with my boyfriend. I was so mad at her. I wanted to scream at her when she said inappropriate things to him, but I realized that would give away that I could actually hear, so I bit my tongue. There was this one time, in class, Sam was waiting for me. Hannah walked up to him, and she told him that she liked his haircut. She said he looked handsome. I barely stopped myself from turning around and slapping her in the face, but I had to use this to my advantage. I was pretending to be deaf for a reason, to see who was a true friend and who was fake. So I remained quiet. I would be at parties, and I would be sitting there, and people would be gossiping beside me, but they didn't care since I was the deaf girl. I would hear so many secrets, like how a girl in my class beside me, but they didn't care since I was the deaf girl. I would hear so many secrets, like how a girl in my class was pregnant, or how someone cheated on their partner. No one knew it, but I was compiling a huge list of people I could blackmail with all this information to use this for my own advantage. I found out that Hannah had a huge wart on her back. She would be so embarrassed if people found out about it. So, I walked up to her at school with a note already in hand. This is what I wrote. Hi, Hannah. I know about the wart on your back. If you want this secret to stay between you and me, then stay away from Sam. He's my boyfriend, not yours. And she had nodded. Fine, she hissed at me. I walked away, job done. In those few years in high school, I became the notorious blackmailer of the school. I had dirt on everyone, even Sam. I discovered his dad was in jail, but I didn't bring it up with him. I wasn't that mean. Now, I'm not proud of it, but back then, I was a spoiled, tormented young teen. I liked to control people. You might be wondering how I managed to fake my deafness all that time. Well, it didn't last forever. I made one mistake that made everything fall apart. I was at a party, and Hannah was talking about me and my boyfriend. I was supposed to be deaf, so when I stepped backwards to hear a bit more clearly, they didn't seem to care. What I heard her say made me lose it. She talked about how Sam cheated on me with her. I couldn't help it. I turned around, screamed at her, spoke clearly, unlike a deaf person, and obviously gave away the fact that I could hear. Everyone was shocked. The music stopped playing. Hey, I thought you were deaf. Sam walked over to me. Wow, you can hear again? I didn't know what to say. I had to expose myself. Everyone would know I was faking it. Hannah narrowed her gaze. Then I watched, helpless, as she suddenly realized what I had done. No, you faked it, didn't you? She said. I shrank back. What? That's not true, right? I said nothing. It was over. The game was up. That's crazy, a voice called. I scowled, turning on Sam. You cheated on me with Hannah? Sam's eyes widened. What? How did you? Ha! So that's why you revealed yourself. Hannah laughed. You heard me. Well, it's true. Sam and I kissed. Sam looked at her in shock. Hannah! Oh, who cares? She snapped. Your girlfriend already knows. I didn't know what to do. Sam had cheated on me, but everyone knew I had cheated them. Whose side would they take? Hannah looked at me viciously. Now I know. That's how you blackmail people. You heard everything, didn't you, you sneak? People started to whisper as they realized what I had done. Some looked worried as they searched back on all the things they had said in my presence. I saw now they would not be taking my side. I had lied to all of them. I had done something unforgivable. I didn't know what to do. I went straight home, but I knew I could never go back to school. The next day, I told my parents I had to change schools. I couldn't go there anymore. My parents were so confused. They still thought I was deaf too. I confessed to them all about it, how I had tricked people, how I had faked my deafness for the past year. Sam and I kissed. Sam looked at her in shock. Hannah! Oh, who cares? She snapped. Your girlfriend already knows. I didn't know what to do. Sam had cheated on me, but everyone knew I had cheated them. Whose side would they take? Hannah looked at me viciously. Now I know. That's how you blackmail people. You heard everything, didn't you, you sneak? People started to whisper as they realized what I had done. Some looked worried as they searched back on all the things they had said in my presence. I saw now they would not be taking my side. I had lied to all of them. I had done something unforgivable. I didn't know what to do. I went straight home, but I knew I could never go back to school. The next day, I told my parents I had to change schools. I couldn't go there anymore. My parents were so confused. They still thought I was deaf too. I confessed to them all about it, how I had tricked people, how I had faked my deafness for the past year, and they were mortified. They couldn't believe I would do something like that. But eventually, they helped me out. Of course they did. They still loved me. We agreed I should move schools, get a fresh start, but the kids at the new school I moved to had heard about me. I was that deaf girl who faked her deafness. The news had spread around, but that senior year was the worst year of my life. People avoided me. They left mean notes in my locker. They called me names. But this time, I couldn't pretend to be deaf, and that's why they took great satisfaction in making my life so miserable. I had no friends. Literally none. Even teachers heard about what I had done at my previous school, and I could tell they looked at me with contempt. I don't know whether it was my own stupidity or just their bias, but I never got an A in that final year of high school. I realized what a huge mistake I had made. I never should have manipulated people like that. I turned something amazing, the miraculous return of my hearing, into something of a weapon. I never should have done it. Well, I've learned my lesson now.
Did your school also have one of those kids, the ones that look like they don't shower and their clothes are always torn or ripped? They wear old, shabby shoes that look just a little too small for their feet. At my school, I was that kid. And don't think for a second that I wasn't reminded of it every 2 minutes. Not only was I that kid who looked like she'd gotten her clothes from a dumpster, I was also the nerd. Tough, right? Before I continue, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. We appreciate it. As a nerdy kid, what do you think my favorite school event was? If you guessed science fair, you're absolutely right. I would always walk into the multi-purpose room ready to crush it and win first place. But my sophomore year, it was different because I felt strongly about what I had made.
And the winner is...
We heard on the intercom.
Diana!
I jumped from where I was sitting and celebrated. Do you want to know what I won with? Let me tell you. I knew I had to really bring it to this science fair if I wanted to beat the new girl, so I completely outdid myself. I was reading a comic book when I came up with the idea X-ray vision glasses. I stayed up way past my bedtime many nights to get them just right. After I won, I felt like I could do so much more. I told my parents I was going on a walk after dinner and walked to the nearest gas station. On the counter, there were rolls of scratcher lottery tickets. I put my glasses on and looked at them. I bought a chocolate bar and the winning scratcher. My glasses allowed me to see the ticket with the jackpot underneath. I went home, scratched it in front of my parents as they told me off for wasting money. Oh, I forgot to tell you. My parents weren't broke. They were just cheapskates. Anyways, imagine the look on their faces when the ticket said I had just won $1 million. Of course, this went on for a very long time. My parents made it a routine that after picking me up from school, we would go buy any winning scratchers we found. Our fortune was growing day by day, each day more than the one before. Now I'm a billionaire, 8 years after winning that high school science fair. I'm in my early 20s. I should have had a booming social life, but I was lonely. The day my life began to change, I was alone in one of my mansions. I was simply walking around the empty house when my doorbell rang. I looked at the window and saw it was pouring rain. Who could it be? I thought. I jogged to the door, grabbing the baseball bat I had next to it, and opened the door a little. On my porch, I saw a young man. He looked my age. He was dripping from the rain. His clothes were soaked.
Hi, my car broke down. Do you mind if I use your phone?
The guy asked. I reluctantly let him in and led him to the telephone. He looked familiar. I felt like I'd seen him before, which was slightly comforting. He came back into the living room and thanked me for letting him use the phone.
I know it's a lot to ask, but is there any way I can stay here for the night?
He asked, and he was right. It was a lot.
You can lock me in a room with only a mattress or something. I don't mind.
He joked. I told him I didn't even know him, so he introduced himself as Enzo. I'm Diana, I said. I took him to my guest house. I had some clothes there that would fit him, so I let him take a shower and went back to the living room to watch my movie, but keeping my